Okay. Yeah, there it
I
is.
was
There it
looking
is.
for it.
We are
Oh, there it is.
okay. We are live now. Am I?
We are,
Are we?
yes.
Are we okay with that? Am I soft moderating here? Is that
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
okay? Welcome to the Oshbob Takeover. Oshbob is taking over slowly. Starts with Portal Ends next to your living room, or our booths certainly. We wanted to just take this opportunity to talk a little Oshbob, and we have here author Kevin Sinclair. And we have one of the two narrators on this project, Stephanie Nemeth Parker and Neil Hellegers. We were doing this as a duet project for Podium Audio. Hey, Jez. And so we just wanted to take a little time to talk a little Osh and to talk about the book itself and the project and the larger Artem world that's is a part of, but also to just kind of like spend some time together because we take advantage of that opportunity to actually like kind of be in a room together as we're so.
Yeah.
I guess we wanted to start with Kevin. Kev, can you just talk a little bit about like what was the what was the origin of this project? Like, there's the Arden project in general and the conversations that the three of you guys had, but also, but in particular, I'm curious, like, how did you start with? How about an orc? Like, where'd that come out of? Like, what was your like entree to that?
So we were talking about it, and we were talking about all the different races that we would have in the world. So, we wanted to take like a sort of strong Shadowrun vibe and have elves, dwarves, orcs, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of at the time just assumed everybody would pick something a little bit out there, but then everybody picked human, and I was the only daft bugger who picked an orc.
Typical human to pick humans, right?
Yeah,
typical human
every time. So, but I feel like I made the right decision, and it gave us the breadth to sort of be really ruthless, but in a sort of natural way, which when humans tend to be that like sort of violent and ruthless, they instantly
I think we all have a little orc in us, but yes,
the sort of instantly classed as a villain, whereas I don't think that really comes across with Oshbob.
Well, that he's a villain, or you don't think he is a villain, or
that he's not a villain. It's sort of a human acting the same as Oshbob in many of the things, and certainly Inara, because Inara does a few questionable things throughout the book. Would be.
Well, that's one of the interesting things that they share that I love when it comes up, because it's I think there's a lot of people ascribing for the morals of the main characters to be questionable, to be either dubious or anti-hero, as I think it's usually what it's kind of called. But in this case, both Inara and Osh, they're both like, well, I would have killed him, but it would have been an inconvenience, Or when I guess are we going to talk about this? Like, we're not going to. Can we talk about it? Like, assuming people watching have read, or how do we don't want to spoil stuff?
So.
Or
what
do you guys think?
I'm comfortable with spoilers.
Like when Hirsch gives here's a list of people to kill.
Yeah,
they're both like, all right, they're like, oh man, we got to get to that list of people we need to kill. Like, they're not like, I don't know if this is the right thing. There's no moral question, and there's not even like a balancing of like, well, there's a little bit of like they did bad things. Like, one of the people on the list was like a mayoral candidate, but it was and then at a certain point with Edgar, thank goodness, thank you for not having me kill the fictional namesake of my own son. That they're like, well, but it's only about utility, right? It's about like, well, he and his wife are useful to us, so we will take them into the unit and all that. So and then so how did with the larger conversation with the sort of the Artem project, did you guys like plot out like, we're going to cover this section of the city, we're going to cover this part of the city, and you're going to cover this part of the aspect of the city?
Yeah, pretty much. We sort of all had a clear idea of where we were going to take things. I mean, Dawn has done quite a bit outside the city and militarily. Jez went a little bit that way as well. Although most of his book is in the city, there's that military aspect. Lars is very entrenched in the city, not too far away from where Oshbob resides. but really it was sort of, the city is so huge. It's immense. It's, it's, I can't remember how big we said it was now. Says it all, but it's like the size of the UK, like at least in
The city
scope.
itself is, yeah.
It is, yeah. So there's lots of scope for movement with that. And it was more just trying to get those like sort of Easter eggs between us and like little cameos here and there.
Yeah, because I can feel like there's even if we haven't had much in the way of crossover characters, or we didn't in this one as much, that we encounter the military, so there's like a slice of Dawn's in there. We encounter
Yes.
hacking, so there's a bit of Lars in there too, and as well, and also
Mhm.
with Monster with Jez's aspect of it as well too. And but I also think it's kind of worth saying, and I mentioned this in a panel the other day too. One of the things I found very just fun about this, and from a working perspective, like these are our jobs, like this is the work that we're doing, this is our like
Mhm.
punch in punch out kind of jobs, but it's also like it's such a wonderful thing to work with friends and across the board from all the other people in this project,
Totally.
and people I've gotten to know better. I hadn't met Lars until Dragon Con and got to hang out with him there too. And it bears saying again, just because it doesn't always happen in for a lot of my other audiobook work, certainly not trad stuff as much, and so it's a great thing to kind of be able to do it, and particularly in this case too, Steph, with the duet. And you've been duetting with multiple Neils and some other people, and we've done other duet projects together. But do you want to talk, Steph, about what your sort of like process, your experience was with this, working it in the duet sense, as well as particular characters and all that?
I mean, I think it was interesting because I think the hard part, like we were all talking about early on, is, everyone was really in the other books as well, were recording at different times. So sometimes it was a little bit like, did someone have this name? Like, did someone already say Portalands in one way? So that, we had to really make sure that we were checking and double checking and cross checking all the different narrators who were working on this,
Mm-hmm.
which was challenging and
Yeah.
fun ultimately, to finally get it and think, okay, we know how this is pronounced, or we know what's happening here,
Mm-hmm.
or like a speech pattern, for instance, from Lars's book. It was like the speech pattern of a certain character that comes into Dawn's book.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I mean, the thing I think about duets that I really love is that I only have the female voices, so I really feel like I get to expand more in that, within that area of just, different female characters. Because when you're also doing male and female, I don't know, just your brain is working in a different way, for me at least. I don't know if you have this with just voicing male characters, but I don't know if like it opens up some kind of like, sometimes it's almost like possibilities that I even forgot about. And I'm like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that. I don't take easy outs. I really kind of push myself to really, create a character who can be differentiated much easier than maybe normally, because I don't have that many female characters. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a
Yeah.
different thing that I'm working
Yeah.
with. Yeah, but
Well,
I mean, I love working. I mean, the thing I love about Podium and doing duets is that, we can do them together, and we're literally acting together, and that's just makes my soul sing, because there's you can't do all of your lines with nobody there. For me, I mean, you can, and you can do a great job, but when you have somebody there that you're really acting with and reacting on, especially like Neil, like I don't know if you kept it, Neil, or not, but there's a part when Neil comes in. Is it Siggy? Are you Siggy?
Sig, the weird one eye.
Sig,
He's like
the
one of the
weird one
goblins. He's got
that
a really badly implanted synth eye. Yeah.
it is a super serious scene, and he just pops in with this irreverent that you've wrote this irreverent, question like, "Hey, what's going?" And I
We're
just
here.
cracked up. I had
Hello.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just like I totally cracked up. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Nobody's so fucking funny." It was so funny. So
Well, and
things like
that's what I love
that I
about
love.
the book too, is that in general, like it's so easy to get carried away with taking ourselves too seriously, and there's a lot of serious stuff in this, but it is also really funny, and from like
Yes.
from all the characters down, everyone has the, whether they're joking with each other, or it's the situation, or it's just situationally with some of the goblins being goblins, it really. Well, but I wanted to bounce off something, Steph, that you said about about working in duet and about how it's different. It's like, oh, and Lars, well, we plan to do a little bit of reading in a moment, but we're talking process for a moment. So and I've said this to Steph a bunch of times. I'm not generally a huge fan of live recording. Like, I do a little bit of it for Good Guys and Bad Guys. I feel like when I'm doing it, I'm exercising a slightly different set of muscles that are complementary, or they overlap. But I always feel like I'm never quite doing the same kind of work, or I'm not working quite as precisely as I would, because I'm conscious of not stopping for an audience. Like, I can't help that part of my brain activates, and I find myself, I'm doing like 3 or 4 pages without any stops, and then another part of my brain's like, yeah, but if you had stopped, you might have done things better. But that being said, that's when it's live recording, but also duet. It clarifies who I'm doing that for, and it's for the other actor. It's sort of like that classic scene thing where you're building on top of each other, and because you're building on top of each other, you can go higher than you would have otherwise. And we get so used to being alone in these rooms and doing all the parts, and so that when it happens, it's so surprising, and it takes a kind of an adjustment. But then you really realize, like, oh, that's why. Because we had to kind of, like, we can talk a little bit about this. We had to kind of construct a schedule so that we could get it all done within time, but also to try to be as efficient as possible, so that if I had half a chapter that was just me, Steph didn't have to sit there and twiddle her thumbs in the booth while I was working. And we're working on a huge time difference. I'm in New York, Stephanie's in Europe, and so we had to kind of prioritize what was going to be the stuff that we were going to definitely do in duet. What were the stuff that Stephanie could do wild? But what it meant was, the long and short of all that is that when we had like a week of spending most, like a big chunk of like an extended morning, basically, for me, and the afternoon for Steph, of just reading together all day, and it was great. And it was built again, and that is built upon, Kev, what you wrote, and it's built upon all of this other work that everyone's doing on these different books. And so it was really just kind of a true, unique pleasure to when all those things kind of came together. And I'm really excited to hear where it comes out and how it all kind of comes together. And I can also listen to some of these other books, because I haven't had time to read or listen to them. And there's little tidbits about, they're like, well, after the fall. I'm like, wait, there was a fall? The monsters beyond the wall. I'm like, wait, there's monsters beyond the wall? What are you talking? What's happening in this world? He's like Ashbob's like, I'm here. I'm in the sewers, and he's not even caring about that stuff because it's so commonplace. But I'm so curious about all that. But
well, I'm just gonna wait till it comes out on audio, then I can listen to everything.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'll read it with my ears. Yeah,
exactly.
Very excited.
What time do we want to do a little reading? Stephanie
Sure.
might have a heart out for a sauna, which is the best possible excuse for a heart out I think I've ever basically heard.
And I'm so sorry, but I couldn't plan it better, because she's literally been like doing the sauna. It's a smoke sauna here in Finland, and it's like old traditional ones, like people like they burn down all the time. She's been doing it since 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's 8:30 right now. So it's just, you don't know when it settles and it's hot enough that you can get in there. So I'm sorry, I thought I had to have more time, but it could be any moment that and then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna dip into the lake, y'all, which I don't like cold water. I don't like cold water, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna.
But it's that's the experience. Like, you heat up, and then
it's so
it's cathartic.
But it's naked. It's naked. It's like even colder. Like, what am I doing? Oh my God, it's gonna be crazy. All right, what are we reading? Are we gonna read the part that you
there's and again, like, this is maybe mildly spoilery, but it's just kind of we can talk for a minute about these two characters, and then we'll do a reading about them.
I gotta go. I got 5 minutes.
Okay, let's just read it.
You can talk about it afterwards.
Yeah. For top of 433. This is Ashbob, and who is the orc, and Raven, who has been his hacker. But there's a bit of suspicion about what's going on. We lost your picture, Steph, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter.
That's okay. You got my voice, right?
Yep,
okay.
We did.
Yes.
Okay.
Ashbob. Ashbob, how are things?
Fine, thanks. And you?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a problem. I noticed all the security cameras were knocked out in the Prestige.
Are they? I asked, feigning surprise. There's remodeling work starting after all the carnage the place has seen. Frank is desperate to get the place open again.
Have they started? I didn't see anyone there.
I haven't been there all day, I couldn't tell you, but they're supposed to be starting there this week. Why are you so interested, Raven? Why do you need to see inside the club anyway?
I help you with your security. That's what I do, isn't it?
She said with a hint of irritation in her voice. Sure, but you don't need to be watching our cameras. I've got people for that, Raven. This is a pretty weird conversation.
You cut the connection to the unit as well. Why did you do that? I mean, I feel like you're trying to hide something from me. I thought we were building a solid foundation of trust.
We've already discussed this with the location tracking, Raven. I can't have outsiders seeing everything I do. I would have thought that much was obvious.
So you have cut me out intentionally?
I'd walked into that one. I took a deep breath. Not you, specifically. I just need to clean up my security systems and make sure they're secure,
Which I already did.
she replied.
So the only person you could be trying to get out is me.
If you did clean them, you did a shitty job because Ace had a link in there too. She laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound that I did not like at all.
I let them in, you fool. It was part of the deal with them to set you free. They have limited access that I control. You see how I protect you? Yeah, you go behind my back. Who have you got working on your security? Another hacker?
I've had outside help for that. But yes, I'll use other hackers, Raven, just like I'll use different gangs and different suppliers. That's normal.
You realize I'm the best you'll find, though, don't you? That I can run rings around any hacker you find?
Why would you? We're supposed to be business partners.
Oh, we are. And I'm going to show you why you only need one hacker. Me.
You're coming off as a little threatening, Raven. Is that intentional? There was silence for a surprisingly long time before she answered.
Not at all, Oshbob. I'm only interested in helping and for the furthering of our mutual success.
So you're gonna leave my stuff alone? Unless I ask?
Of course. I wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable, now would I? Now, I really must go. I've got so much to do.
She ended the call, and I sat there, utterly bewildered by what had just happened. I felt like she just declared war on me. Hey, and then she's back.
Little old me.
It was more sinister because you weren't there, just a black screen.
Yeah, it's sort of what I was about to say. Well, and Lars is like, Raven sounds so nice. When we talked about this, again, I'm going to talk about this in the sense of like everyone knows what's going on here. Raven's got her. They both actually have their own agendas. So it's not evil or they're good and bad, but we definitely talked about being sure to play all the interactions between Ashbob and Raven to not telegraph that was going to be the case, to have them kind of get along and have them kind of like jive off each other a little bit until the moment where she betrays Unara and everything kind of falls apart there. Yeah, so it was a lot of that, and I remember that one in particular because it was just so playful and fun, and has its own kind of humor to it. That's not a joke humor, but it's kind of like you get a little bit more of insight to what's happening in Ash's head because it's his POV and him thinking about it. But yeah, so it was a lot of that kind of fun.
I love Lars. Raven sounds so nice. Why would Ashbob be so hurtful?
Right.
I know.
Ash is the villain
right,
here.
Lars?
Yeah. If only Ash trusted her a little bit
Totally.
more, maybe she wouldn't have betrayed them in the first,
Exactly. Hello. Duh.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
Well, and so just looking up for number one. It's a dog eat. It's an orc eat goblin world out there. It's a goblin pee on goblin world out there. Yeah.
You know what I love? I just love the fact. I mean, and I have to run because I've got to go do the sauna. But I have to say that I love that. I mean, I love series anyway, right? I'm this person who loves to, like, things to continue on, and I love that this series has is such a big world and there are so many different aspects to it. I mean, your book is so different from Dawn's book, but they're all so interesting. And then I love that there are these overlaps and connections. I just think it's just such a cool concept, and I just love that you guys pulled this off. And I just can't wait to hear everything and to read everything. I'm just so privileged and so like happy to be a part of it. I cannot even tell you.
I
Seriously.
feel the same, having used too, sort of on board with it. It's absolutely
Ah,
amazing. I
so
hardly
happy.
believe I wrote it when you were reading it there. I was like, did I write that?
All right,
It's
you
the
guys have a
magic.
great rest of your life. Don't talk
Life?
bad about me. I love you both.
Rest of our lives?
Mwah.
Oh,
Have
rest of our
a
Enjoy
great
lives.
your
night.
sauna.
Okay. Bye,
Yeah.
Steph.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
soon. Good job.
Bye. Wish me luck. I
Bye.
don't freeze to death.
If this is the last we hear from Stephanie, we know what happened. She's going to be floating in a
Yeah, I know it's
pretty
supposed to
water.
be healthy going from hot to cold like that for your blood vessel, but it sounds like a recipe for an injury to me.
Wakes you up though, but
Oh yeah.
we have like a few minutes left, but I think
Yep.
the other thing I wanted to talk about is what I think was sort of interesting about the sort of process here also is that when the first team was going in to record was when we finally had a conversation. We had like an extended Facebook chat about how like we decided like how we wanted to place all of these all these different races and like basically like the culture of Artem. And what was an interesting thing, and this kind of came up in a panel the other day too, but how the American narrators all assumed that we were going with, more or less recognized or consistent or typical British understandings of all these different groupings. Like
Yes.
the elves were going to be like kind of RP. Maybe
Yeah.
the humans would be something different than that, but the all of the dwarves were going to be Scottish and so forth. And then but you all had a very firm idea that you were like, no, that's, and I honestly I thought the same thing too when I first picked up page 1 of Osh. I was like, oh well, it read naturally to me that in one way. And coming back to it, I'm really glad we went the way that we did. But Kev, do you want to talk about like what the sort of what that part what that was like and what your thinking was behind not writing it necessarily in that, maybe writing it in the idiom but not having the accent be there for Osh?
Yeah. It was a case of I knew who I wanted to narrate, which was you and Steph. Like I knew for a long time. I think possibly before I ever really put pen to paper, I knew that I wanted you sort of involved.
Yeah.
But you're both American. Now, I had that sort of in mind and would sort of all agree that the setting wouldn't have sort of anything. It would just be a standard accent.
Mhm.
And what I really wanted was for you to be able to do the best work you could without having to worry or overcompensate on accents. I know like you could do brilliant accents, but it could take a lot of way sometimes.
Mhm.
And I just really wanted you to enjoy the character. I'm sorry about the gravelly voices that you've had there
well,
undertake.
no, I mean, I had to make when we talked about that too, about how like there's a level of like deep, like as I had to kind of work with Ash a little bit to make it something that I could do sustainably for the entire book and for
Yeah.
the next one as well too. And so adding, in retrospect, adding in what would have been an accent, well, there's two things. One, yeah, would have been something else. I'm up for that kind of challenge, and I always grow when
Yeah,
I do have that challenge.
absolutely.
But the other thing is that I think this is not. There's nothing in here that is clearly like, oh, this is our world 200 years in the
Mhm.
future. There's no like. There's a mention
No.
of a fall and things like that, but it's almost it's not important for this world. And there is something that's so representative of like if he's like that's what I was doing, tumbling through the air like the blades of a broken extractor fan. If it's right there, that, especially for really frankly for an American audience, and I know we're not the only
Mhm.
audience, people automatically like slot that character into something in their heads. It's in a way it allows more unusual variety and atypical approaches to have it be, I don't want to say no accent because this is an accent, but
Yeah.
for
but
the
it's
character.
Osh Bob's accent, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like that's it. It just for me, it just would have given you a lot more freedom to, make them brilliant, like how you have, sort of,
Right.
rather than penning you in with unnecessary things just because I quite fancied the sound of like a Cockney accent or
I mean,
I
it's
was
fun.
just going with the
That's the
status
thing. It's
quo.
just what I sort of like. I kind of assumed it was there because it was like, oh, but that's fun. But it's also the other particular thing about Ash for an orc is that he's smarter than your typical orc.
Yeah.
In fact, by his stats, he's at what's considered human level, which is like,
Yes.
aren't humans kind of dumb? But but at least he's. But so when it came to other orcs, like like Walski,
Yeah.
it was like how do I differentiate this orc voice from that orc voice without it being like,
Yes.
he doesn't talk for as much, so I could probably drop him a little lower, have a little more gravel, but there's a bit
Yeah.
less. He's a bit less distinct in his talk, whereas Oshbob is a little clearer in the way he talks.
Yeah.
There's not a huge difference between. They're both massive orcs, and they both have a way of expressing themselves that has more in common with each other than with other people. But it was good that we had that conversation to kind of establish all those things. And I guess are there more elves in the in Empire?
There are a few, yes.
Yeah.
It's all sort of it's quite military based Empire.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the generals
he's
and things.
starting in the military basically, right? Because that's how that first book ended anyway. But also, I kind of like, so we did start, though I like that we did still say, even after that conversation about how like, oh, well, these are not from the Isles. Like this is not Tolkien, we still were like, but the dwarves are still a little Scottish. And that's how we did that. We just like, it's like just like a dram of Scots like thrown into the whenever the Scots come up, like not quite an accent, but like the flavor, like the a whiff of it.
Yeah.
But though with the goblins, I kind of like, we didn't say accents or not, but we were just kind of like, we know what the goblins sound like. They have these raspy little voices, but they're written, but you wrote them and kind of like they're speaking a broken language. They're not speaking whatever the language is, common or whatever it is. And so I always take that to mean that they have another language and that they have a goblin language.
Yeah,
and that they're speaking. So always just Scottish to whether you turn the dial down or you turn the dial up, but the goblins are they're in temperament wise, they remind me a lot of the kobolds that I do in Good Guys and Bad Guys, in terms of like the sort of role that they serve in this society of like everyone's like fucking goblins, but at the same time, but that's what I love about this. They become, it starts there, but over the course of it, they become some of his most trusted, trusted companions. So.
I'll actually, it was one of my favorite bits about the book, writing the goblins in their sort of path along, sort of under them, but with them. So I had quite a bit of fun with the goblins at times.
Yeah, they're well, and they were always like Steph was saying, it was always fun when the goblins came up, because even when they're being their most serious, just like, I do this for you. It was still just like we both kind of like biting our lip a little bit to be like, we're actors, we like love to crack ourselves up sometimes, but still it adds to the sort of the tapestry of the whole thing, that it's not just about this serious orc. There's all sorts of really interesting things happening, and the way that if these things start in one place, if they don't grow to someplace else by the end of it, then I don't feel like I've done my job as an actor. And so you gave a lot of opportunity to have that growth happen as we kind of went along too. And I'm really I'm super psyched to crack into the next one as well too. So I'm not seeing any questions in the comments, but some nice things from some really awesome people. And I think that's pretty much our time though. Yeah.
That is us about done, yes.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. And
yeah,
I heard a couple of your live bits in Discord.
Oh yeah, it popped in Discord. Well, and we'll be doing for anybody else watching, we'll record. We did all the duet stuff. I recorded solo offline, but we recorded all our duet stuff, and I feel like there's probably going to be more duet stuff in Empire. Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll doing all that. We had this crazy schedule, but we'll put it together and we'll post about it so people can watch. Cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. All right, Kev. Well, enjoy the rest of your night.
Yes.
Yeah.
You too.
Thanks for stopping in, everybody. And
yes, here's everyone.
Oh yes, there it is, right there. Thanks, Steve. Okay.
Good shout.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
See ya.